My 23 male boyfriend, 24 male, won't talk to me and is suggesting we break up after I saw his burn scars. Throwaway because my boyfriend follows my actual account. My boyfriend's house burned down when he was young after electrical issues never disclosed to his parents. He and his father were severely burned. They lived, but his mother died. He and I met in freshman year and became friends in sophomore year. I've never seen his scars in full good view until now, only small glances if his shirt rode up and he'd quickly fix his shirt to then cover it. He always hid his scars, constantly wearing jeans, pants, and long sleeve shirts even if it's super hot outside. His scars start from the bottom half of his ribs to just above his knees, so this is the only way he can cover them. Even bringing his pajamas into the bathroom to change into. He's done this ever since I've known him. Even after sex, which we do in the dark, which doesn't bother me because I know this is what makes him comfortable, he'll immediately get changed back into his clothes before we cuddle or do anything else. Once again, I'm fine with this, just trying to explain I know how uncomfortable he is with his scars. I know he is ashamed of his scars, and when we were friends, I was fiercely protective and always changed the subject if his scars got brought up, which he always thanked me for. I have never and would never ask or pressure him to show me. I don't judge his scars or think they're ugly. I thought he knew I wouldn't judge him because some of his dad's burn scars are impossible to cover up, one of them covering half of his face, and never once have I judged or even thought his dad's scars were disturbing. He's a very handsome man. They both are, which is why I'm so confused by his reaction and accusations of this. I work weird hours. I'm a nurse, so sometimes I can come home at 9 a.m., sometimes 5 p.m., sometimes the ass crack of dawn. I went to immediately take a shower. I was in airplane mode and was completely exhausted. I opened the bathroom door and he was getting changed. I saw his scars. I'll admit, I stared. Not because I thought they were gross, but because I was having an oh shit moment knowing that I had fucked up. He and I have been dating for almost a year. I had to move into his place a while ago after my parents went no contact and cut me off after I came out and told them I was dating boyfriend. Long story short, toxic Bible thumping parents. So I'm not used to sharing an apartment with someone. He blew up at me, yelling at me to, quote, get out. Note, he has never yelled at me before this. Sure, we got in spats and small fights where he raised his voice, but never has he full on yelled. I shut the door and he went quiet. I was pacing in the kitchen for almost 20 to 30 minutes when he quickly walked past me trying to leave when I stopped him. He was pissed, yelling at me that he thought, quote, I would know how to knock by now, and questioning if I did it on purpose. I was trying to explain while trying not to cry because I saw how red his eyes were. I knew he was crying. I couldn't say anything, just made incomprehensible sobs as I tried to explain that I was, but he wouldn't listen and left without saying where he was going. I'm heartbroken. He texted me an hour ago with a single measure of, quote, I'm not coming home. Tomorrow we can talk about our relationship. I immediately messaged him back asking what that meant and spent several minutes watching that little text incoming bubble pop in and out before he texted, quote, whether we should stay together, as if it was obvious. I have no idea what to do. He's my boyfriend, my best friend of 8 years. What the hell do I do? I love him. I can't imagine life without him. His dad is like a father to me. I have nowhere else to go if he kicks me out. Above it all, I can't lose him. I'd rather have to go through coming out again than lose him. How do I make it up to him? How do I let him know that I'm sorry and never meant to make him uncomfortable?
Wow.
Holy shit.
That's a lot.
Update. I decided to send a text that I love him and his scars don't bother me so that it could relieve some tension. He didn't respond to that, but he came back in the morning. We talked for hours, where it started with me apologizing for walking in on him and that I didn't mean to. He admitted that he knew that and apologized for yelling. I suggested we get locks on doors and he seemed pretty happy about that. To clear the air, I asked him about the, quote, whether we should stay together text and if it was rooted in his ex-girlfriend, basically asking if she broke up with him over that. He admitted that he thought she didn't mind his scars and took his shirt off in front of her. She decided to gasp and start making a big deal about how he, quote, cheated her and that he made it seem like the scars, quote, weren't that bad and broke up with him. OP goes on to say, I have a newfound hatred for her now. He said he knew it wasn't an excuse, but his brain immediately went to that and he freaked out. I asked if he wanted to break up and he was just trying to find an excuse and he quickly said no. Specifically that he was just trying to give me an out if I wanted it. When I tell you I was relieved, He asked if I wasn't disgusted. Why did I then stare? And I said that I had an oh shit moment of panic knowing I fucked up. He felt awful and apologized for making me feel so uncomfortable in our home. Every time he says our home, I have a serotonin high, and that he would try to work on being more comfortable with his scars. That is when I suggested therapy. He instantly got defensive, saying that he already had therapy and it didn't work very well. I pointed out that the way he wants us to live isn't healthy, that we can have locks and a knock before entering policy, but him expecting me to never see him naked was unfair to both of us, that it was his insecurities getting worse and me enabling it. He was dismissive of these points, saying how it wouldn't change things. It didn't work the first time. Why would it work now? I pointed out how he almost threw out a 9-year-old relationship over me accidentally walking in on him. He tried to say that locks would help stop that from happening again. Me walking in on him, not throwing out the relationship. And I said, quote, it might, but I don't want you walking on eggshells either. I want you comfortable with me. I want you to trust me. He begrudgingly agreed to talk to his dad about what therapist he went to and going to see them. I'm going to text his dad just to make sure he does in a few days. I also repeated a suggestion that other people suggested about getting tattoos or going to couples counseling, and he just stared. He asked something along the lines of, quote, why do you care about seeing my scars so much? You didn't care before. Not mean or aggressive, just genuine confusion. I kind of laughed awkwardly and said, quote, I thought that you would show me on your own when you were ready, but I don't know about that anymore. Baby, I love you, but I don't want you to feel like you have to hide your scars from me, nor do I want you to worry about me breaking up with you over seeing your scars. I love all of you, including your scars. He started crying. Me too. Wasn't the first time in the conversation. Tons of tears shed on both ends, and I comforted him. He said he didn't want me to be stressed out in our home and that he was sorry. He was a lot more open to couples counseling than personal therapy, which was a half win that I'll take for now. We talked about our future some more, and I asked if he ever thought that he would be comfortable enough with me seeing his scars. He said that he wants to show me, but he's not ready yet. I was happy to accept that, especially since he's agreed to couples counseling and therapy. I am so proud of him. I've summarized a lot here, but once again, this was a very long talk. We got dinner and slept, which we both really needed. And as of today, I'm doing research on couples therapists while he went to work.
One of the times me and my ex-boyfriend broke up, I'm standing outside a bar. We broke up that night. I'm chain smoking outside the bar, crying. It was St. Patrick's Day. Standing with a couple of my friends, and this dude walks by, and he knows my friend. So they're chatting for a bit, and then he walks away, and I'm like, who the hell was that? That guy was so cute. They're like, oh, that's Dave, fake name. Never seen Dave before in my life. He walks away, and we go back into the bar, and then I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna go home. Like, I fucking broke up with my boyfriend tonight. And my other friend goes, okay, I'm gonna go to the bar and meet up with those guys. And I go, well, hold on. And I print out a receipt paper, and I write my name and number on it, and I go, give this to your friend Dave. So I go home, and I'm like, wow, I'm so fun and silly. I messaged my friend. I'm like, did you give Dave my number? And he's like, oh no, I blacked out and completely forgot. And I was like, oh, okay, whatever. 4 months later, now it's July. I'm having a party at my apartment. My apartment was on top of a coffee shop. So it's like a walk up. There was a fire escape to get to the roof. We're sitting on my roof, and all of a sudden these 5 guys come up the fire escape. They get up there and they're like, oh, we live next door. And we just heard there were people up here. So we thought we'd come see what's up. And we were just like, that's fun and insane of you. But I guess they were all drunk, whatever. It was like midnight or something. So anyway, me and one of these guys starts talking. And I don't even remember starting to talk to him. I just remember all of a sudden we were in like the deepest conversation. I actually don't even know what we were talking about. Like, I feel like music and then like our lives and our parent, like it was like the deepest conversation. And then his friends go, okay, we're going to go to a bar. And then he goes like, would it be crazy if I like kissed you right now? Oh my God, so romantic, honestly. I was like, no, like we're in love. I don't know what just happened here, but we have fallen in love. So he kisses me and then he's like, let me put my number in your phone. And I'm like, okay. So he's putting his number in my phone and I see him type in his name. I don't know if it was because I was drunk or like whatever, but he types it in, Dave, whatever his last name was. And I'm like, oh, shut up. I tried to give you my number on St. Patty's Day. He's like, when? And I'm like, well, I wasn't there. I just saw you pass me on the street. I was crying, smoking. And I told my friend to give you my number on this receipt. Blacked out. And he's like, well, that's fine because I blacked out St. Patty's Day. So even if he handed me your number, I probably would have lost it. Both really liked live music. So we end up going on like a few dates just around the city, like watching bands and whatnot. Whenever he would sleep over, he would stay all day the next day. So we would just have coffee and chat all day, like until dinner. So I want to say we're dating for like about a month. And then at the end of the month, he was going to this music festival. I don't really do shit like that, but it was a weekend. It was like an hour out of the city, whatever. It was like a weekend music. At the time I was actually interning for Universal Music. So there was a giveaway for these tickets. And I actually ended up winning them like 3 days before the festival. Let's say the festival starts on Friday. Thursday, I messaged message him and I'm like, oh my God, like I won tickets to this festival. I'm going to come. Like it's an hour away. And he doesn't respond. And I'm like, that's weird. Then I remembered that he was going to the festival on Thursday, even though it started Friday, he was going to start camping on Thursday. So I'm like, maybe he's just not looking at his phone or whatever. But like we had iPhones at this point. So it was like deliver, like whatever. So Friday I drive to this festival. I text him when I'm there. I'm like, hey, like I'm here. Nothing. And Neil Young was playing that night. Like everybody was going to Neil Young. So I'm at Neil Young. There's like thousands and thousands of people there. Also, I was VIP. Oh, I forgot to mention, even though I was like elevated on this like side barn thing, like I couldn't see him. It's like a sea of people. Here's where things go kind of south. I went straight from my car to Neil Young. I was going to join my friend's camp because I came last minute. So I was going to join their camp later. Well, while I'm walking back to my car, now we have zero cell phone service. I can't text anybody. I can't call anybody. No clue where their camp is. So I just get back to my car and now it's, I don't know, like 1 a.m. I didn't have a sleeping bag. I didn't have anything. Like I'm not this kind of person. I was going to join my friends who know how to do this shit. Anyway, can't get in touch with anyone. I sleep in the trunk of my car like a fucking rat, like no blankets. Like I don't even know what I was wearing. I was probably fucking freezing. So as the night went on, obviously like less people were using their phones. And when I woke up in the morning, I had all these messages from my friends being like, where are you, whatever, but I didn't have a message from him. How funny is this? I get out of my car, I look up, my friends, guys, are from me here. This is them. It was nighttime and I was drunk and I couldn't see them. Next morning, walk over to them, backs out. These 2 girls that know my friends walk over to like have a debrief with my friends. And one of the girls starts telling my friend, I don't know what's going on with Dave, but like we were hooking up all night. And then this morning he was being so weird and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just sitting there like, that's what I'm doing over my morning instant coffee after sleeping in my trunk like a rat. This is why I don't go to shit like that. She leaves and I turn to my friends and I'm like, that was crazy. And they're like, why was that crazy? I'm like, because I'm fucking dating that guy. And she just came here and told us that she was hooking up with him all night and he's not responding to my text. I feel like I need to mention this, not to sound pick me, but the friends that I was there with were all guys. So they were all fucking clueless. Like, you were dating that guy? And I'm like, what? Like, yes. They're like, oh, that is crazy then. I'm like, yeah. So once again, I look at my phone, there's no cell phone service again. So basically at this festival, whenever anybody was trying to use their phones, there was no service. And then overnight when people weren't using their phones, all your messages would come through. So I'm like, fuck, okay. How am I going to find this guy? There's like a million artists playing. So I just guessed kind of which shows he would be at because again, if you watch part 1, our courtship was kind of formed over music and going to see live bands. So I was just kind of like, okay, I feel like he's going to be like at Alt J. That's what year this was. So thank God I have my little like artist pass. I got to take a shower. So I take my shower. I grab one of my friend's girlfriends and I'm like, come with me to Alt J. And she's like, done. We walk to where they're playing. 10,000 people at this festival, okay? I'm looking around, I'm like, okay, what the fuck am I even doing? This is hopeless. Like, I don't know how I'm gonna find this guy. And then I'm like, I have to pee. So we go over to the porta potties and there's a huge lineup for the porta potties and we're all waiting in different lines. When I get to the front of the line, and he walks out of the porta potty that I'm standing in front of, which is like a needle in a haystack situation. Like, I need you to understand, like, what are the chances I'm standing there? This guy keeps popping up where I am. So he comes out and he's like, hey. And I'm like, oh my God, hey, I've been texting you. And he's like, oh, you know, the service here has been so weird. Barely had my phone on me, whatever. I was like, oh, that's okay. I'm just gonna pee and then I'll come link up with you. And he's like, okay. And I'm like, are you going to Alt J? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, just wait for me. I'm gonna pee and I'm gonna come right back. This was also funny because at this point, he had not even acknowledged that I was gonna be at this festival. When he walked out of the bathroom, he wasn't like, holy fuck, what are you doing here? It's like he saw my text. Probably just hoping to God I wouldn't find him in a sea of 10,000 people. But oh, God had other plans. So anyway, I got out of the bathroom and he's waiting. What's he gonna fucking do? Run? I'll find you again. The universe wants us to be together. Now, I'm no longer with my friends. I go with him. We go with his friends and that girl. Keep in mind, we were dating for a month up until this point. Like, we were going out every week. He was sleeping over all the time. And so now he's not holding my hand. Like, we were holding hands 3 days ago. He's not trying to fuck with me. Obviously, that girl's gonna kill him. And he doesn't know that I know about this girl who at this point, I'm thinking he's actually been wheeling for a while. The rest of the day, I don't go anywhere. I don't let him out of my sight. He's like, where are your friends? I'm like, I don't know. There's no cell phone service. We see Alt J and then we go somewhere else. Then we go somewhere else. And then the headliner was Kendrick Lamar. I'm at this guy's hip all day and I can tell he's trying to play this game of being nice to me and normal to me, but also not holding my hand or not really acknowledging me that much. Even though it's very clear I am just some random chick attached to your crew all of a sudden. We go to all these things and then at Kendrick Lamar, I like go and grab his hand and he goes, whoa. And I look at him like, whoa. And that girl's standing right behind us and he's just like, whoa, sorry. I just didn't know it was you standing there or something. And I was like, okay. After Kendrick Lamar, he wants to go to a rave. He's probably thinking I won't want to go to the rave. Well, I'm at the rave. I didn't want to go to the rave. Fuck that shit. But anyway, at like 3 a.m, walk back to his camp, which was so far from my camp, but I do it because I'm like, where is this gonna, at what point is this guy gonna crack? Back to his camp. It's me, him, 10 people, and the other girl. And one by one, like the sun's coming up. Everybody's going to sleep until it's like me, him, and that chick. Actually, she just gets up and goes to bed. And he's like, all right, want to go to bed? And I'm like, yeah. This was my first and only time sleeping in a tent. I'll never do it again. We didn't fuck, don't worry. I just was thinking like maybe a blowout would happen, but like no, she just, I guess, gave up. Wake up in the tent. It's hot as fuck. He's like, okay, want me to walk you back to your camp? My camp's an hour away. I'm like, no, because I'm going to go take a shit in a porta potty. So he walks me to the end of his camp and he kisses me and he's like, okay, I'll see you in the city. Okay. And I'm like, okay. At this point, I know he thinks he's gotten away. He's like, but I'm about to put him through hell in the city. So he gets away with 2-timing me at the music festival. And he's like, I'll see you back in the city. And I'm like, okay, see you in the city. I walk the hour from his camp back to my camp. But by the time I get back to my camp, the guys there are like, oh my God, Sam. Girl was so upset. Like, I guess they heard from one of her friends. I was hanging out with him and she was devastated. Like, but why is she devastated though? Is she dating him? They're like, I don't know. Apparently they have a thing. And I'm like, when did they have time to have a thing? Like, I've been with this guy every weekend. That day I go back to the city and I'm thinking he's going to text me that night when he gets home. The reason I thought that is because he said, I'll text you when I get home. He didn't. So a few days go by and I'm like, okay, whatever. The following weekend, I'm having a house party at my apartment. Same apartment that I met him on the roof at, the same apartment that his friends live next door to. So I message him and I'm like, hey, I'm going to have a house party this weekend. He goes, oh, this is good. He goes, I'm out of town this weekend. And I'm like, okay, no problem. And then he's like, how are you? How's your week been? And already, like, I know this is done. You haven't messaged me all week after hanging out for like 4 weeks in a row. Like, we're cooked, babe. But I play along. I'm like, I'm good, you know, whatever. I'm not letting him know I'm bitter, right? I'm just like, oh, good week, like, whatever. Conversation fizzles out, okay? So I have the house party on Saturday. I never get visibly drunk, but this night I was fucking hammered. Like, I was not right. You know I'm hammered? Because I start talking like Natasha Leggero. I start going like, stop, because I'm not even gonna do that with you. No. Good at impressions. You just have to believe that it sounded like Natasha Leggero. Anyway, he's bumping. One of my friends is like, okay, I'm leaving. I'm gonna go to this bar. Meet up with some people. And I go, who's at the bar? And he goes, blah, 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 blah. Dave. Like, Dave's at a bar here? He's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, I'm leaving my own party and coming with you. I call an Uber Black. In 2015, an Uber Black was like $400. Who the fuck, what was I thinking? Selling fucking tacos for a living. I didn't have that kind of coin. Holy fuck, I forgot the most important part. I had a Bumble date come to that party. Bumble Jesse, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. Basically, I get an Uber Black, me, Jesse Bumble's brother, because he didn't want to come to the Bumble Dates party by himself, and my friend go to this bar. And the bar was far. It was like uptown. I get up there. There's a bunch of people there. He's sitting at a table with that girl. My poor Bumble date, him and his brother at the bar. They're like, okay, this bitch is fucked. Long table. He's sitting with the girl at the end of it. I'm like, oh, I walk up to the table. This guy looked like he saw a fucking ghost. He was like, hey. I was like, hey, what's up? Like, nothing. And this girl, you could tell she's like, this bitch again. And she gets up and goes and gets a drink. And I sit down next to him and I'm like, so weird. So did you not go away this weekend? And he's like, no. I'm like, why? Is it because you're fucking that chick? And he's like, no. And I'm like, oh, okay. I don't know. Just checking. He's like, I've just been tired. Like, I'll call you tomorrow. Like, sorry, I've just been like out of it this week with work, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I get it, man. Don't worry. You know what? I'm going to head home. So I fucking go back to my party. Feeling a little fucked that I did that. Oh, I left Jesse Bumble at the at the bar. I was like, bye, Jesse Bumble. He was like, bye. Like, why am I uptown? Bar was so far away. He had his brother with him. He was okay. That's the game. That's the game online anyway. You might meet a freak. But at least you got up there in a black car. Anyway. Do I hear from him the next day? No. The next time I even see him is on that chick's Instagram grid because they were dating full on. Hard as fuck after that. Year goes on, at each other's parents' house for Christmas. I'm like, well, that's what that was. This goes on for almost a year, but psych, he's one of these traveling guys, right? So he says, actually, psych, bye, I'm moving to Australia. Through social media, I see goodbye party. I'm like, maybe she's going with him. She's not. Moves to Australia. Bye. That following summer, I go to a house party. So this is now the summer after the music festival. And that chick is at the house party. She's shooting daggers at me. She's telling her friends, whatever. And I'm like, bitch, what did I do to you? If anything, you stole my man. You won. It's not my fault he moved to Australia. No, this chick, I just found out she's married with a kid now. It gets to the point where like at one point I'm in the kitchen with her at this house party and she's like, I'm like, hey, and she's just looking at me like, fuck you. I'm like, fuck me. I'm not the man and I'm not even mad. Summer 2016, okay? I'm like, whatever, babe. Like this guy's gone. He's down under. About February 2017. I'm at work. I'm hostessing at a new restaurant and it's fucking dead because there's a snowstorm. This guy, by the way, doesn't use social media. So I have no clue what his deal is. And by the way, I haven't seen him in almost 2 years at this point. And it's a dead ass night. No one's coming in because there's a fucking blizzard. This restaurant was kind of on a random street. It wasn't like downtown. It was like on some random like side street. No cars on the road, nothing. Like everybody's basically snowed in. And I look out the window. One person on the street. No one is outside walking in this. It's a guy holding his guitar walking down the street. And I look through the window and he looks back and we just go like, Like, is this how I run into this motherfucker again? And that started up something else. The guy I was dating ghosted me for the girl he was sleeping with at the music festival that we were both at. And then they're dating, living happily ever after. And I thought that was the end of the story, except just kidding. He moved to Australia and left her here. I thought, okay, he just lives in Australia. That's the end of the story. Then one night a year later, I was looking out the window of my work into a whiteout blizzard. I see one man on the road holding a guitar, wearing a plaid jacket. This is how you know he just came from Australia. Not equipped for the weather. It's like when Australians come here and wear Ugg boots. I go, and he looks at that exact moment and goes, and through the window, we both kind of go, run outside. I'm like, oh my God. And he's like, oh my God, do you work here? And I'm like, what are you doing? And the same thing happens. We start talking and I forget what we're talking about. And I'm standing out there in my little work uniform for half an hour in the storm. And luckily my best friend worked with me. So she saw me out there and she's like, and through the window, I'm like, from Australia. So anyway, same thing happens. We're like deep in this conversation, talking about our lives, like traveling, blah, blah, blah. And my manager comes out and she's like, are you good? And I was like, yeah. Like, okay, I'll let you get back to work, but like, are you in town? I'm like, I don't leave. He's like, okay, I don't have a cell phone. I'll just like message you on something. And I was like, okay. So like a week goes by and I'm at my friend's house and I get a text message from this guy that I went to elementary school with. And like we see each other once in a while, but he's not texting me. So he texts me, he's like, hey, what are you doing tonight? Like, I'm just making music at my friend's house. What are you doing? And he's like, oh, do you want to come over for a games night with me and my girlfriend? And before I reply, he goes, because Dave's coming over and he wants to see you. And I had no idea that this random guy from my past and Dave even fucking knew each other. Like, how do you know that guy? And he's like, oh, we're in a band together. Okay, obviously I'm coming over. So I go to his apartment and it's me, Dave, and this guy and his girlfriend. And we have this whole night like playing games, like board games and shit. And it's like a double date, but like obviously it's not because I haven't talked to this dude in over a year besides running into him outside my work. Finally we leave and then we're in the elevator and I was like, you want to ride home? And he's like, sure. So I drive him to his house and it's like midnight or something and we're sitting in my car in front of his house and he's showing me like all this music, because remember, this is our whole thing. He's showing me all this music, I'm showing him all this music, and we sit there till, I don't know, 3. Finally he goes, okay, I gotta go to bed, but this was fun, we should hang out. This was fun, we're hanging out right now, my guy. And I feel like at this point in my life I really hated when people would be like, okay, see you later, see you later, you know, that whole like, see ya, what do you mean we should hang out? What the fuck do you mean we should hang out? So then I just go, what do you mean we should hang out? And he goes, like, I'll take you on a date this week. Doesn't kiss me, slams the door. So I think like maybe a few days later, he messaged me on Facebook Messenger and he was like, hey, what are you up to this week? And I was like, I'm free Wednesday. He's like, okay, let's go out Wednesday. Choose a bar in between both of us and we go and we meet up at the bar and we're sitting down. I remember what I was wearing. This was my hottest year, 25. Oh, this was my vibe at 25. Like, who the heck is that? Not this troll. We're sitting down and we're making small talk, whatever. And then I just go, you know, I know what happened at the music festival. A year and a half later now, right? And he's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, after you didn't respond to any of my messages, I slept in my car like a piece of shit. And the girl you were banging came to our camp for coffee and told the whole fam damly about how you guys hooked up the night before. And I had to sit there like a fucking idiot. He was like, oh my God. So we're at the date. Tell him that I know what happened at the music festival, how he was wheeling that other girl and how I had to like follow him around all night like a fucking moron to see if he would like tell me the truth. He was like, that is insane. I can't believe that happened. And I was like, yeah, that's why I showed up at that fucking restaurant like a psychopath. He's like, this all makes perfect sense. So he's like apologizing. He's like, I'm so sorry. That was like not cool of me. And I'm like, whatever, dude. It was like over a year ago. Whatever. That was the conversation. It was all good. He tells me that him and that girl, you know, broke up. He fucking went to Australia, obviously. And then like a little issue where later that week, he was like, I actually don't want to date anyone. And then I was like, okay, bye. And like 2 days after that, he sent me a Snapchat of him at this bar. Like, come through. So I went and met him at the bar and then we just started hooking up and dating. Kind of like lost in life. Like he didn't know what he wanted. He was like a musician, but he didn't know anyway. So he was interviewing for jobs because he just got back from Australia. So he was trying to figure out what he was going to do here. I was working at a dive bar. And I was like, do you want to work at this dive bar? And he's like, no. Anyway, maybe we're seeing each other for like 2 months. And one day he goes, okay, I'm going to go do this job interview for some like environmental thing, like goes and does it. At the end of the story's funny. Afterwards, I call him and I'm like, how did it go? And he was like, oh, it was really good. But you know what? This just ain't me. So I said, fuck this. I'm moving to Peru. It's like, what? And then he's like, yeah, I'm moving to Peru. I was like, okay. First boyfriend was like this too. He was one of those like fucking like, oh, I'm just gonna go here, I'm just gonna go there. I can't deal with this crap. The night before he moves to Peru, we have this like night at my apartment. And like dinner, like whatever. And I think we ended it with like, we'll see what happens with the universe since it loves to bump us into each other. Leaves for Peru. Bye. And then for the first like maybe almost month that he's there, we were FaceTiming pretty regularly and then it just stopped. He met a girl there. I could like see from his tagged photos on Instagram that he met a girl there. And like, I wasn't like fucking pining over it. I was more just like, what's going on over there? Like juicy. I didn't really post. I only knew anything that was going on with him through like people that posted him. So whatever, he like lives in Peru, I guess, indefinitely. And then one day, maybe a year later, I was at my work now, which is at an arena. So I was working the hockey game, and there's like a million bars in the arena. Same fucking weird shit happens. I'm like standing there, and he's in line for one of the people, like one of the tellers at my bar, like Dave. And he's like, yo. And I'm like, what is going on here? God just makes us bonk heads. And I'm like, what's up? Are you back from Peru? And he's like, no, I'm just here for Christmas, like whatever. We just kind of said hi, whatever. Year after that, I'm dating my now husband, Joe. I have like a Christmas potluck and I invite all my friends. And one of my friends said, oh, can Dave come? He's like not doing anything. He's back in town for a few weeks. I was like, sure. Oh, the last time we like hung out, he came to like my house. Joe and I had been dating for like 3 months or something like that. Talking, and there was like a flirty vibe, but then I was like, oh, are you still with that girl? And he's like, yeah, I'm moving to Germany or something to be with her. And that's where he lives now. Ran into him one more time at a wedding recently. Good vibes. Honestly, all good vibes with that dude. At the time, no one could tell my woo-woo brain that's like, what is going on? Like the universe keeps like how many times are you gonna run into someone? Especially when you have phones and stuff. You don't run into people anymore, but he didn't fucking have a phone. And I just felt like it was so like serendipitous and whatever. And like, this is my soulmate and blah, blah, blah. And I really married someone else, and he really went to Germany. This is all to say, if you're someone that gets caught up on the like, but meet cute, like needs it to be romantic, like da-da-da-da-da, get the fuck over it, because this guy had all the meet cutes in the world, all the crazy coincidences, whatever, and I met my husband online, and my relationship with my husband is the fucking bomb. I was such a cinematic romantic before that. If you guys want to hear stories about other guys I've dated, I have tons. I was a bit of a village bicycle back in the day.
I, 36 female, just found out that my husband, 43 male, was married when we started dating and had a child. What in the world do I do with this info? My husband and I just celebrated our 4th wedding anniversary. We have a child together. Long story short, I recently found out that my husband was not only married when we started dating, but his divorce wasn't actually finalized until our son was almost 6 months old. This is eating me alive and I desperately need advice. I know the story sounds weird AF, but 6 years ago I started dating this guy. He was from somewhere else, but he was in my town for a year-long military assignment. He told me he had a horrible ex-wife who cheated on him for over half of their 10-year-long marriage. I felt so bad for him, and all of his friends and family members corroborated his story and told me how great he was and how awful she was. Ugh, I hate when they get people to join in and like validate the lies. This guy moved in with me very quickly because his room on base was super disgusting and moldy, and despite being on the Nuva ring, I ended up getting pregnant, and he proposed a few months later. It all happened super fast, but I was wildly in love and didn't think anything was wrong with my happy little family until one day, out of the total blue, I received a Facebook message from his ex-wife calling me a homewrecker and calling my newborn son a bastard. I was so confused. This guy was definitely not married when we started dating. Or so I thought. I never replied to her message, but I confronted my then fiance about it, and he assured me that she's crazy and she's the one who had cheated on him. Again, all of his friends and his mother verified his story, saying his ex-wife was a cheater and their marriage was 100% over when he and I got together. So anyway, flash forward to a couple of months ago, hubby and I just celebrated 4 years of marriage, and I thought everything was great. I loved the life that we have built together, and I had entirely forgotten about the ex-wife thing. One day out of the blue, I had this weird feeling that I should check her Facebook page. Again, it had been years since I had even thought about this woman, and I have no idea what compelled me to check her page. I guess women are crazy, lol. So anyway, I went to her page, and several months before, she had written this awful, scathing post about me, calling me and my son all kinds of very nasty names, saying that my soon-to-be husband is going to do to me what he did to her because he's a narcissist who doesn't care who he hurts. I sent her a message saying that I was so sorry that she misunderstood what happened, but I was certainly not a homewrecker, and my precious son is definitely not a bastard. And I asked her to please take down the post. She responded, "No, leave me alone." And I said, "I'm not super inclined to do that unless you remove this unfairly defamatory post." Again, I'm so sorry for any misunderstanding, but he and I didn't start dating until this date. Much to my shock and dismay, she replied with lots and lots of proof that they were indeed still married at that time. I started digging and found his divorce record. It does say that they were not legally divorced until our son was nearly 6 months old. I guess I now understand why he wanted a 2-year-long engagement. So anyway, what in the hell do I do with this info now? If I confront him about it, he will obviously know the info came from her and he will be angry with me for messaging her. I've been trying to pretend like I don't know and that everything is fine, but this is eating me alive. He has obviously lied to me about this before, repeatedly and to my face. So if I confront him, I feel like he's going to lie to me again. I now can't trust him. I don't think he's lied to me about anything else, but if he would lie about this, what else will he lie about? This is a big lie. I do now worry that he will do the same thing to me, like his ex-wife post said. I do also think that there could be, or probably is, a lot more to the story. Maybe she did cheat first. I don't know at this point. But even if she did, and even if him getting with me was retaliation for her actions, I'm not at all sure that would be enough for me to trust him again moving forward. This is just over, right? I don't know how to get past this at all. I have always told my friends to never date a cheater because how you get them is how you lose them.